Yeah. Not everybody in the team supports the decision to use Scrum. How do you resolve it? Yeah, that is a good question, because it's so contextually dependent. It really depends on that person and what their disagreement is. Okay? How did that decision come about? All of these things matter. If somebody has told them to do Scrum, well, that's not a good place to start. Let me phrase it that way. What we really want is the team to want to do it. So if you're in a situation where somebody has told a team they are now doing Scrum and that team resists, fair play to them. I completely agree. You can tell me I'm going to play football all you like. I'm not going to play it. I'm not a fan of football. Never played a game in my life. So I'm just going to stand there and let you play football around me. Okay. I'm stubborn enough that I would stand there for I can't even remember how long a game of football is. I don't know, 80 minutes, 90 minutes, something like that. Why wouldn't they do the same? You are trying to impose, or somebody in the organisation is trying to impose their will on an intelligent, educated individual, and you expect something other than resistance. Speaks more to you than it does to them at that point. So, if you are in that situation, what we need to do is start understanding why. Okay? Open up the conversation about, is Scrum a good answer? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What are the other good answers that are available? Okay? Maybe somewhere in that conversation there is a way that everybody in the team wants to work that works for the wider organisation. It can be Scrum or Scrum-like, but what it will be is something that everybody's on board with. And that is going to be better than anything where not everybody's taking part. Okay? Over time, we can work with the team to adopt the practices that make sense and discard those that don't help them. Okay? And really, that's what we want to do when adopting Scrum anyway. All we've done is maybe taken a few steps further down the line sooner than we wanted to get everybody on board. Okay? So actually one of the biggest places I see resistance is where Scrum is imposed, and you have people who say, I've tried it, it doesn't work for me. Okay? And you need to work with them. You need to understand why that is, how to help them and the team move forwards, and sometimes that requires compromises. Over time, maybe you can move them more towards a Scrum way of working. Maybe that's a good thing because the data is telling you that that is better. However, maybe you're moving more away from Scrum because the data is telling you to go in that direction instead. That's good. I mean, that's better than okay. Okay? Because the purpose of any agile approach is to improve. What that improvement looks like, we don't know beforehand. Okay? We don't know when we try things out whether it will help or not, but what we do is we double down on the things that do help and we minimise the things that slow us down, that make us less effective as teams. So when you've got Scrum being imposed on a team, really that's how I start. I start by understanding where that resistance is coming from. Okay? And working with the team and the organisation to find a compromise. I don't go for compromise very often, but actually if you've got people with opinions and it's not a battle that I'm willing to take on of making people do something they don't want to do, right? It's not what I do. Okay? So instead, understand, find a place where it works for everybody and move from there. One of the other places you'll meet resistance, we don't do Scrum, is, I've already mentioned it, we tried it, it didn't work. Well, I've never found Scrum to not do what it's meant to do. I have found many, many instances of people saying Scrum doesn't do what it's meant to do, and when you look at it, they've not been doing anything to do with Scrum. But it was called Scrum, so Scrum didn't work. That is unfortunately like pointing at a weed on the ground and going, that rose is ugly, I don't like roses, and therefore dismissing roses from your life. Roses are a beautiful flower, they smell nice. The fact that you're pointing to some raggedy weed doesn't actually affect the rose at all. That's your understanding of the situation. And this is often what we have to help people do. And it takes a little bit of training. It very often does require re-educating people about what Scrum is. Okay. And I'll open that conversation up by asking them what they think Scrum is. What is it that they did that didn't work? And sit down and we explore the framework that they were using and where it came from. And we will see things, and you come across amazing things. One of my favourites was, well, the project manager always told us what to do. It's like, well, there's no project manager in Scrum. So you weren't doing Scrum. Or, I don't get why we have to call a week a sprint. You don't. They're different things. Or this, or that, or, well, these things aren't in Scrum. And very often, it's because what they were doing didn't work. And when you look at it, you can kind of go, well, no, it makes sense that didn't work. That isn't a great idea to help build a product. That's a great idea for your organisation to maintain the existing control, but with agile words. Well, that's not Scrum. That's not agile. That's just renaming things. Bringing them on that journey and teaching them what Scrum is, and then not imposing it. Okay, you'll notice this is a reoccurring theme. Don't impose it on them. Invite them to try it out. Shall we try this out for a few weeks? Okay. And maybe they say yes. Well, great. Well, let's go. Maybe they say no. Okay, well, what are you willing to try? What can we pick up from everything we've talked about and move forward and add bit by bit by bit? For me, it is never about doing Scrum. It is about creating an environment for an effective team to solve complex problems. Okay? Scrum is a good starting point. Kanban is a good starting point. XP is a good starting point. Loads of them. An experienced Agile coach and Scrum Master will have lots and lots of tools to hand to help that team get started. If you find that you're having resistance from one of them, understand why. Where does that resistance come from? Is it from lack of knowledge? Is it because it's being imposed? Is it because they have the knowledge, they've tried it, and it just genuinely didn't work? Okay, all of this is great to understand. And then we work with the team as a whole. It's not about individuals, as a whole, and help them work out what works best for them to move forwards. What we have to ensure is that everybody is on board with what we're doing, okay? At least to the point where they're not getting in the way of everybody else. This is not about consensus, this is about consent. Okay? A well-functioning team will agree to move forward. Some people will be hesitant, they won't believe it will work, but they will not get in the way of everybody else. And the aim being, some things will work and they'll say, okay, I can see that's working, I'm willing to give it a go. And some things won't work and they'll quite smugly look at you and go, I told you so. It's like, okay, that one didn't work. Let's try something else. But over time, we evolve an approach for that team. And really that's what we're looking for. Okay. My way to tackle any resistance is to understand the cause of it. Okay. And then work with those people to find a way to move us towards what I assume is a mutual goal, a better environment to work in for the developers, for the organisation, a better way of delivering the product, solving the problems at hand. If everybody's on board with that idea, actually finding that way forward isn't so hard. Okay? People resist because they're being changed, not because change is happening. We don't all like change all the time, but we deal with it every day. So it's not about a resistance to change, it's often why they're being changed, what's happening around them. Help them to understand that and find a way that works better for everybody involved and go down that path a little ways. If you've got to this point in the video, I hope you've enjoyed it. If so, a like would be appreciated. If you want to hear more from me, more answers to questions that maybe you've got in the Agile world, please subscribe to the channel. And if you've got a question that you really want answered, drop it in the comments. I promise we'll get around to it. Thank you.